Hello, you guys. This is Rachel Kirkland, the Modern Shaman, and I'm here with you for some question and answer time. So, thanks for joining me. If this is your first time joining in, I do these question and answer times on here on YouTube, and you're free to send me a question if you'd like to go on my website. There's a form. My website is just themodernshaman.net. Otherwise, it's probably at the end of this video, I usually put a little tab on there that has a link to my website and information that you can use to connect with me. Okay, so I'm going to jump into the question today and then get into it. Okay, so I'm not going to jump into the question. So this question actually, was a really long email and kind of explaining what's going on with a child that she loved. Now, I don't want to give too much away of her personal story, but there is some extreme paranormal psychic stuff going on with the child. Not in a negative way, but just one of the forms was teleportation. Like a child would be in one room and 1 second and then be outside in the backyard 1 second later. And that happening a lot. That child being over there and then all of a sudden it's behind you, or having grabbed something that was like on top of the ceiling fan that it couldn't have reached without a ladder or something. You know what I mean? Just a sense of non-physicality or not being in the body with that child. And other extreme sorts of psychic or paranormal activity. So her question was about kind of safety, like how do I keep this child safe? I don't want something to happen where, I'm in a mall and all of a sudden he teleports out to the parking lot and we lose him, or there's just a sense of kind of out of control and not knowing how to handle these situations. So I wanted to address this, obviously because she asked, but also because there's a trend that I'm seeing in children right now, and everybody's probably seeing it because y'all are as much a part of this collective as I am. But I teach a psychic development class for children that's focused on younger ages and helping them understand and gain control and a sense of boundaries to spirit, and to kind of help develop that, or help. They don't really need development, they just need kind of boundaries and structure and helping them understand and give wording to certain things. But as I'm teaching this, I'm seeing a trend with a lot of children that are coming in now, whether you call them indigo children or crystal children or multidimensional children, or those that are living from a space where the veil from the other side or the other dimensional spaces and realms is so thin that they're very rarely in physicality, that physicality is not their native state. Now, this is true for all of us, but as the veil thins more and more, there's just less restriction from their physical body. And so there's almost, they have to learn how to stay put, how to be in the body, how to almost constrict their spirit a little bit more to live a physical experience and to have an interactive cultural, social norm for them. And this also includes, ADD and the autistic spectrum, and a lot of children that are, again, living more from their multidimensional body than they are just a physicality or a physical form. So this is good. This is positive. In my mind, I'm like, hip, hip, hooray. This is awesome, because this is where we're going. As far as humanity, we're transforming, and the veil is thinning to the place where our bodies are becoming more multidimensional and less physical. And this enables, longer lifetimes, just teleportation, being able to utilize telepathy, all sorts of things that are tending to be restricted by our human, neurological processing. If we're processing from spirit, it's a different ballgame. So I'm excited that we're going that way. And eventually we'll all die out and they will be kind of running things, and things will be going in that direction, which I think is awesome. Okay, now having said that, let me get down to answering your question. I'm going to close my eyes for a second. I do this sometimes, if you haven't ever tuned into me. because my mind is going, and I don't want to answer this from my mental space. I want to answer this from my heart space, in a sense of spirit leading what they feel like would be for the highest good of this question. So I'm going to shut up, tune in a bit, center myself, and then I will talk. Let's see. Just going to set a clear intention for spirit to speak through and say what they feel like is most relevant. Okay. So the first thing that I would suggest is in terms of safety, and this is teaching these children about their free will. This is huge, and depending on the age of the child, this teaching format will look different. If you're talking to a 2-year-old or 3-year-old, you may use very simple language, yes, no. Okay? You may give hand gestures like no or yes, open palmed, whatever it may be. Giving children the awareness that they are the ones in charge, that they have power as a sovereign being to say yes and no to certain spiritual experiences, to spirits coming into their life, to this teleportation, all of these things. Feeling like they have a sense of control is huge. And I would say that's first and foremost. To ask them, like, do you want this? If they're like, yeah, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, I like being able to move really fast from the living room, back into my room or whatnot. Or if they're feeling overwhelmed by spirit, I don't want all these voices in my head. I can hear what everyone else is thinking and I don't know how to shut it off. Then teaching them that they have free will and they can set those boundaries of what they do want and don't want with spirit. Setting a very clear intention. They can write it down if they want. They can sit and talk to you about it and say, I am fine with this teleportation, but I am not okay with spirits coming to visit me in my dreams without my approval. So you can say to spirit, do not come into his dreams. You must first ask approval before you visit him in his dreams. Set those boundaries. I have a video just on spiritual boundaries. And this is huge for anyone that's interacting in a multidimensional space and, ongoing in different realms and dimensions and stuff like that. Or just understanding your intuitive direction or empathy. But that's the first thing I would say, is teaching them about their free will and that they have yes and no control. Okay? A lot of times kids are targeted. I know that sounds horrible, but they are sometimes targeted by negative beings because they're so easy to drive into fear, into a state of fear. And if you remember from your childhood, I'm sure you remember sometimes your fears are completely irrational, but you feel them wholeheartedly. You know what I mean? You see like a plant and it's a plant, but to you it's like so freaky when the lights are turned off and it's a shadow. It's like it just freaks you out. So, and again, it's like, it's not rational, but you feel it to that point. And so a lot of times, energies that feed on fear can be drawn in very easily to children. Also, and your auric body or your aura, your chakra system has not fully developed until you're about 7 or 8. Now that changes. If you're some indigo kid, you may have it fully developed when you come in. But for the most part, for where we have been, kind of my time and generation, it's not fully developed till you're 7 or 8. And so there's a sense of there's not a lot of energetic protection around children. So it's very open, spirit-wise. Similar to animals, how animals are very open to spirit. There's not a lot of auric or psychic or etheric protection going on. This is a lot of times why children like hide underneath their parents or like on a leg of someone else when someone comes into their presence. They're almost using that adult's aura to shield them. So that being said, you can do that as an adult. You can shield them, set up a stronger protection just you can use that protection prayer I've shared, which is I'm surrounded by the white light of the Holy Spirit that guides, guards, and protects me, and only what's for my highest good can enter here. So you can give them visualizations of shutting themselves in an egg, surrounding themselves with white light that is impenetrable, that arrows bounce off of and nothing can get in there. Teaching them that. And setting that up in your own free will. People always ask, can I set up boundaries for my children, or is that in the domain of just their free will? And it's both, meaning you can still set up those boundaries, but if they choose to let them in with their own free will, that's going to trump it. That's why it's important to teach them that they have control. And you've sometimes got to drill that into them, because they're not born into a society that gives them control yet. We always, unfortunately, the way our society is kind of run is where children come in and they don't have a sense of control. They don't have a sense of voice or trust in themselves yet. They're always asking others, and others are telling them what to do, and others are guiding and directing. And in some ways, that's relevant, but it almost kind of it's counterintuitive to then saying you're a sovereign being, you have your own choices, you can set your guidelines, you can make your own rules for spirit. They're not used to that. They're used to going into a teacher saying, these are my rules. This is how we do it. Follow this. And we can be used to that as adults too. That can be a hard transition to take on our own power. But it is imperative in the realm of spirit, because otherwise you have no rules and spirit runs amok. And you're not telling them not to do something, or that you don't want them doing that. And yet you have all the power to do so. So teaching the children that is huge. Also, another thing I would suggest is giving them a voice to it. Having them speak about it, draw, write about it, even if it feels like it's a made-up story. Giving them a form of expression and validating that expression. Not like you have to be like, here, this is awesome, like he's talking to aliens and telling everybody, But if your child comes to you, or a child comes to you and is expressing something like that, when my 8-year-old, who does have visitations from galactic beings, first started telling me about this, it freaked me out because I was worried, and you get worried for them. But the more I gave him the space to speak about it, the more comfortable he felt stepping into his own power, because it was a sense of his own direction with it. And once things are on the outside, there's a lot less fear attached to them. So that just dissipates some of the energy of fear and negativity just by expressing it, just by getting it out. And again, they can draw their experiences or whatever it may be. Oops. Sorry, it says low battery. Okay. I'm trying to think of anything else. I think, despite, obviously, like I said, I teach kind of like a psychic development. It's not really development. It's more like guidelines and structures and amplification of what kids know, and kind of giving them ways to work on it. We use lots of manipulatives. Your ESP cards, trying to have them guess what they're seeing. You can develop and work with kids with this. My kids love the ESP cards. And then I have this little third eye that I use with kids, and we practice moving our consciousness to different places in the room. We practice closing our eyes and placing our eyes in a different space, or in a different body, or in a different anything. We move this eye around, and so I use a lot of manipulatives to help kind of get them aware of what they're already doing. Typically, they're already intuitively doing this, leaving the body and astral traveling, or not coming back into the body. But when you give them kind of direction with it, like, okay, now pull your eyes back. Now pull your eyes back. I'm sorry, I'm being goofy, but kids like it. Kids like goofy. So pull your eyes back behind your own eyes and look from here. Giving them a sense of awareness of what they're already doing, languaging it, is a big thing. Now, I know that depends on age. You know, if it's a 2-year-old, there's not much you can do other than psychically protecting them, setting an aura, giving them a sense of yes and no. That's clear. And they're at that age where they're starting to learn that yes and no. So if spirit brings something and they don't want it, nightmares are huge for kids. And a lot of nightmares or night terrors have to do with remembering past lives that were really extremely traumatic. On a subconscious level, so they can set up that and say, no, I don't want to have any dreams connected to my past lives. Now, when they get older, they may want to pull that rule and regulation out and say that's no longer relevant. It's fine. It's not like these are set in stone. It's a working list, but always setting a yes and no when they're little, giving them an option, is huge. Again, teaching them that they have free will in terms of spirit. Same with empathic kids. That is huge. Now that the veil is thinning and these children are coming in, I see that all the time. Like, and telepathy too. Kids that know what people are thinking. Kids that, my other son, it's like he can be upstairs playing a video game and I'm downstairs like cooking and something will have happened and he'll be like, what's wrong, Mom? Not hearing anything, but just my emotional state. And he'll be like, you seem mad. And I'll be like, I'm not mad. And he's like, well, it's more like frustrated from a phone conversation you just had. And I'll be like, dang it. Yes, you're right. I can't hide anything from you. Just an extreme sense of empathy, and knowing exactly what emotions someone's feeling and what they're tied to. Like I said, almost like telepathy, knowing what people are thinking on an energetic level. And lots of orbs around kids, lots of visitations with kids, lots of seeing dead and passed over animals and relatives and having those conversations. These are all very common, very common. So if your child is going through this, first of all, don't feel like they're going to be ostracized for the rest of their life. I don't feel that way. I feel like the more we encourage them to have their sense of self and truth to it, meaning it doesn't have to be turned into a Hollywood style movie. Most of the time when you talk to kids about these experiences, they're not Hollywoodized. They explain them very, very clearly and very succinct, and they don't blow it out of proportion. And encouraging them to address it in that way is also big because it's a form of validation, and adults can hear a story like that and they can feel a sense and resonate with a sense of truth there. They know it doesn't feel like a Santa Claus story. Okay. I feel like I kind of went all over the place with that, but hopefully there's some nuggets you can pick up in there that will be helpful. And I'll just say, overall, just love those kiddos. It's genuinely the best thing for them. Unconditional love. That trumps anything else. And it heals, and it teaches, and it provides foundation for the rest of their life. So, if that's your dominant intent, they'll be okay. Love you guys. Blessings.